Godfrey weighs appeal of monument ruling. Appeals courts say Summum faith can erect display. This is in Ogden, which I don't see exactly. Utah?
Ogden, Utah.
That's right, that's right.
Deep in Mormon territory.
Yes. Mayor Matthew Godfrey may appeal a ruling to the U.S. Supreme Court that would allow another religion to put its doctrine next to a Ten Commandments monument in the Ogden Municipal Gardens. An appeals court said Friday that Ogden could not display the religious statements of one organization while denying another group the right to display its statements in the same location.
Exactly. They can't. That's the thing in a nutshell.
Fairly obvious.
You know?
The 5-foot-tall granite monument of the Ten Commandments was given to the city in 1966 by the Fraternal Order of Eagles. I always love that name.
Yeah, we like to point out the acronym.
Yeah, foe.
Foe.
Our foe.
The foe is putting up Ten Commandments monuments.
Presuming that the monument was religious in nature, the Salt Lake City-based ecumenical group,
multiple faiths.
Organization. Had asked the city if it could display a similar monument outlining the 7 aphorisms of its religion. Ogden denied the request, and the Summum faith subsequently sued the city on First Amendment grounds. Because the area has 6 other monuments, 4 to pioneer settlers, 1 recognizing slain lawmen, and another honoring Ogden's sister city, Van Wagner, who is Rick Van Wagner, an attorney who argued on the city's behalf.
Okay.
Van Wagner claimed the religious nature is neutralized and that the Ten Commandments are really an artifact of an ancient and bygone era.
Well, you know,
that is so dismissive.
So's the Code of Hammurabi, and but we don't have we're not fighting to get that up in front of government buildings and Capitol buildings and public land. So.
There are a lot of things out there
artifact
of an ancient and bygone era, and we don't post them on public buildings. Well, why do we need this one?
Well, it's just so weird that, of course it's religious, right? Of course it has religious significance. That's the only reason they want it up there. And it is so bizarre that when it gets challenged, they immediately fly to this weird defense of, well, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just a historical document. And so it's just there for historical reasons, but it's not really a religious document.
So all the Bibles that are in churches right now are just an artifact of an ancient and bygone era.
Yeah, it's like the only way they can
historical curiosity.
The only way they can defend the putting religious monuments up on public land is to say, oh, well, it's to strip it of its meaning and say, well, it's not really religious. Well, then why have it up there?
Yeah.
Clearly. But what is hilarious about this whole Summum thing, right? And I checked these guys out, and we'll get to that in a second. Yeah. But it's perfectly true, right? If you have the rules and regulations, so to speak, of one particular faith, a list of commandments, as it were, specific to one particular faith on public land, then, if you want to be fair, you got to have everybody else's. Okay? But this is why we have separation of church and state, right? Because you can't. Because the framers of the Constitution and the Founding Fathers recognized this quandary. Oh, wait a minute. If you have one and you don't allow all the others, then what you're doing is you're showing favoritism to the one. Yeah. And the government shouldn't be, and that shouldn't be the government's job. The government shouldn't be in that position to say, we recognize and favor this one faith just because it happens to be the majority faith. So we'll go ahead and give it special dispensation and say, and all you folks have minority faiths, you're not as good.
Yeah.
As the folks who happen to believe in the majority.
That's part of the reason we denied the request in the first place, Godfrey said. We see the obvious problem with doing that. We would very likely have a religious monument forest on our hands. Because they would have to allow absolutely everybody with any wacko faith to come and put up a little stone monument of theirs.
So clearly the solution has to be
all or nothing, and the only logical one is nothing.
The Ten Commandments have got to come down.
Yeah.
And so there are challenges happening now on a nationwide scale about these things.
Almost every day you'll hear about a new monument that's being challenged.
And again, this isn't about, oh, let's stamp out religion, let's get God out of them.
Of course not.
No, this is about not allowing the government to dictate, even indirectly, by playing favorites, which religion is the acceptable religion for American citizens to practice. Yeah. The Constitution says, no, faith is a matter of individual concern. Yeah. The government cannot restrict, but it cannot promote either. So take these Ten Commandments monuments. I'm sure you'll find some big church, big Christian church in that town that will be delighted to plop it in its front lawn.
And we have absolutely no problem with doing that.
That's where it belongs.
If the hardware store wants to put up 10 Commandments on their front, on their front sidewalk, go for it.
Well, not on the front sidewalk, because that's owned by the city. But if they have a parking lot that they own,
parking lot, anything,
they could
put
set
it up.
Yeah,
go ahead.
They could lay mortar down. They could take one space and go blam, and that's their private property.
Go for it.
Put it there. Okay. But if you're going to say public land, it's got to be all or nothing. And the Constitution makes it abundantly clear. The most sensible recourse is nothing.
Exactly.
Just for amusement purposes.
Let's hear about these people, shall we?
I checked out what the Summum faith was, and I went to their website. They have a website, summum.org. It's this weird New Agey sort of ancient Egyptian pyramid power stuff. They have their symbol is like the wings, these Egyptian wings. You've seen them before, but they have a pentagram in the middle. So they're trying to. But they say it's not satanic, and they actually have a pretty elaborate website in terms of like there's like Flash and HTML and XML, all this. So, clearly these people are lunatics. For example, the 7 aphorisms that they would like to have on their own little plaque next to the Ten Commandments involve, let's see, they have the principle of psychokinesis, which is like some sci-fi concept where you move stuff with your mind. It says, summum is mind thought. The universe is a mental creation, but they contradict that in a little bit. There's the principle of correspondence, principle of vibration.
So write your mom.
Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Principle of opposition, rhythm, cause and effect, gender. They say everything has masculine and feminine principles. So these are their 7 aphorisms. Apparently this little religious sect was started in 1975 by a guy who was an ex-Mormon who claims to have met some space aliens. They gave him all of this info, all of this incredible... and you know, these space aliens who have the ability to traverse light years.
Yes.
So apparently their scientific knowledge must be amazingly vast, right? But when they get to Earth, what do? They tell us things like, everybody really ought to love everybody. You guys came all this way for that? Duh! Yeah. But anyway, so this guy and changed his name to Amen-Ra, which is the Egyptian god. But also on their website, they have a little section called Divine Sexuality. And apparently, their creation myth involves, well, here it is. God is a masturbator. God began creation by masturbation. This is from the,
well, there was nobody else around. So.
You think I'm making this up, people. It is, they say on the website, it is the most divine of all metaphors. The universe was created with a big bang through the masturbation of God. I couldn't make this up, I promise you. And it's on the website, and it's accompanied by these illustrations.
Oh God, images.
Yes, which in dubious taste, you might say. So,
are we sure these aren't some quacks that are trying to do it to prove a point rather than?
Well, I don't know. I mean, how do you tell the difference between
true?
It's so weird.
An actual belief in plain old delusion.
It is so creepy and delusional, right? That I don't think it can be. Well, obviously it's made up, but it's made up by some nut who really believes it. It's not some guy who is making something up that he knows he's making up for a joke.
Okay.
But yeah, so clearly these people are nuts, right? And this is summum.org, folks. You can look it up for yourself. But you know, they say things like the website also has quotes like, "Nothing and possibility came in and out of bond infinite times in a finite moment."
Hold up, guys.
Okay, which is a statement that is so devoid of rational content that you can't even have an opinion about it. I mean, it says nothing. So, all right, so these guys are loons, which makes this whole situation in Ogden, Utah particularly hilarious because what the court has said is, you know, these guys' lunatic belief system are just as good as yours.
Yep.
And the Mormon.
So in the middle of Mormon land, they've got to say God is a masturbator.
My goodness, I tell you. No. If you go to the website, folks, prepare to be offended by some images there. But if you're inclined to be offended by that kind of thing, but it's summum.org, summum.org. So so that's what's going on, and the court has just ruled in this group's favor for having their 7 aphorisms. I think what I'd like to see, obviously, what should happen is the whole thing will get appealed, and what will end up is the 10 Commandments monument will have to be moved to a church property or something like that. And then these Summum guys.
It's the only logical thing.
You know, for all I know, Summum's just the one dude, right?
Possible.
It could just be this one guy living off in UFO land, but. Extreme.
I'd like to see how he gets converts. I mean,
Extreme. It probably goes down to the adult bookstores. But extreme hilarity this week involving this.